Hi all, Jebro here, and I'm going to be talking about the Warrior Greatsword Hammer build that we are seeing in PvP at the moment. It's just a guide video really to give you the build, and yeah, I'm trying to cover some of the meta builds quite early on rather than putting them out so late, because people are like, oh, what's Warrior using at the moment, because people don't always watch the ESLs and the tourneys, which is the best place to really check out the builds and see what people are running and to keep up to date, because you never know, this might be out of date in a month or so, or it could be quite permanent. I mean, it really depends what happens. Of course, when Heart of Thorns is released, who knows what's going to happen, because there's going to be loads of crazy stuff. We don't know what's happening with Warrior yet. At the moment, this is the 13th of July, so still we don't know what's going on with that. But let's not talk about that anymore. Let's talk about the build. So, Warrior. First of all, of course, going to go through the weapons and the sigils and the rune and the amulet, of course. So, obviously, we are going with the hammer first, as you can see here. Got the nice mad scientist hammer skin, looks pretty sick. You can see it there, look, lovely. Okay, so the hammer is very useful, of course, for locking down your opponents, as well as doing some nice damage, as well as that weakness, which is great, and that cripple, of course, as well. In the hammer at the moment, we've got Sigil of Hydromancy, so we chill them, of course. Chill is also very useful, you know, you can slow them down, their abilities and cooldowns and whatnot. And I've got Sigil of Leeching. I mean, this can be energy as well. It's one of the two is great, you know, you steal health or you can get some extra dodge back. It's survivability, so really that one is something which you can interchange. And if we go on to the Greatsword, which is really what's pretty nice about this build. I mean, we know lots about the hammer. We saw that a lot with, you know, Hambo and whatnot as well, and how, you know, the Greatsword is very good not only to get some nice burst damage off, but also to be very mobile around the map. This is your main weapon, and your main mobility comes from this weapon as well, because you've got two skills which are very useful. Actually, three. I would say three as well. So whirling attack. It puts an arrow in front of you, and you can travel in that direction quite quickly, you know, so that's an extra speed. So if you're thinking about trying to catch up to an enemy, or you're trying to get around the map, trying to go to different fights, to different skirmishes, to different caps, you can use that in combination with the fifth skill, Rush, so you can actually travel a lot faster. So you can tell you get a lot of speed with that, and you can get some nice engagement with that, so you can be in your initial engage right there. That was just me auto-attacking, by the way, so you can see the amount of damage, which is pretty good just on that. Also, they remove immobile, both of those skills as well. Now, the reason I say three skills is just because of the cripple, you know, because if you're running away, if an opponent is running away and you don't have any of those abilities up, you can just cripple them from afar, of course, throwing that sword, so you cripple them. So it hits them on the way through and the way back. So, you know, if they're quite far away, you'll probably just hit them with that one cripple anyway, but you know, still helps, forces them to use a Condi remove if they really want to get away from you, I guess, as well. So on the Greatsword, we are going with fire and also air. You know, you could stick the energy sigil on here as well, but you know, once you've got that initial engagement and you're in the Greatsword, you can do a ton more damage if you've got those two sets. Obviously, sigil of air and fire produce a lot of damage, especially as we see that on thieves as well and whatnot. So, and obviously, yeah, Mesmer Greatsword. Rune of the Pack, a couple of obvious reasons really for this. You're going to get the Fury, as well as the extra might that comes out, and also the swiftness, and the plus 125 precision, of course. But the swiftness is really great, of course, if you do get that hit, so you can get to fights, you can be really even a lot more mobile. So imagine you've got swiftness, and then you've also got, you know, your mobile skills on the Greatsword. You can get to places very quickly. It's beautiful. Love it. So let's talk about the rune. Amulet. We're going for Marauder. This is the old Berserkers. You can try Berserkers if you want to die. If you're very good at being mobile, then you can probably run it as well. I mean, give it a bash, but I think Marauder is probably going to be your best choice. This is what the main PvPers are using at the moment. Sigils are something which is always interchangeable for your own personal style of gameplay. Sigil of Hydromancy, for example, you can see there, like I said before, is that chill as well. So, very useful. We're in combat at the moment, so we are still getting adrenaline. The next thing we're going to talk about in this build, we're just going to quickly talk about the utilities as well. So Healing Signet, now you have that resistance on it as well for 6 seconds. We've got Berserker Stance, of course, so, you know, It's a nice stance. Gain adrenaline for a short time. Conditions cannot be applied to you. Very good versus combi builds, of course. Endure pain. We'll know all about that. It's still susceptible to conditions though, but it's mainly that burst damage which comes out, which at the moment is pretty useful. Balanced stance, of course, then giving you stability and swiftness, and also the stun break, which is very, very beneficial. Now, Rampage. Rampage is the beast of everything at the moment. This is very, very, very strong and powerful. Now, a good place to go and check the rotations and stuff and ways to use the different abilities is Meta Battle, because it's got it down quite well actually. There's still a couple of things missing there, but one thing about Rampage that is really good is to got, not only has it got a ton of damage, but it's got a lot of control. So let's pull into this right now. I mean, you can see the 5th skill, bang. Good combo finisher is the blast, as well as the complete knockdown, which is really good for team fights. The throw rock does a ton of damage there. You could see, oh my good lord, and it also gave you that stun. And then we've got the charge, so that's, you know, your gap closer as well. And I didn't really get to show you everything, but we can jump back into that when we get Rampage back up. You can just see how much damage that did just by those couple of abilities. You've got permanent stability unless it gets taken off you, but you know, it's very, very, very good. I mean, loving the amount of hype I get from this ability when we actually go into PvP games and we're watching this. You know, it comes out and just it brings the hype with it, and you can really, really have a lot of fun with it. Even just like solo queuing, which is what I'm doing a lot as well at the moment. Really as well, I mean, it not only can you use it to be very offensive in team fights or even in 1v1s versus something which is hard to take on, something versus condition builds are quite hard to beat in this, something that's very sustainable. You know, you could use that Rampage in a 1v1 if you want to make sure you can grab that point and you know you're not going to need it for a team fight later. So, you know, there's different options. I'm going to do some gameplay as well to hopefully give it some justice. But, you know, I'm not saying, again, I'm not the best warrior player in the world. I'm just doing this to give you the build and give you a bit of a guide to what's exactly happening. People always do this. Yeah, so we're going to go through the traits now, trying to let you know exactly what's happening with the build. Going to go through strength first, so damage foes at the end of a dodge roll. Now this is actually not only good for the damage that comes out from it in the base being 739 with AoE being 5 targets. If you've got something like a blind on you, then you can dodge to remove that blind as long as you do that damage, you know, because you're well, you can dodge to get rid of the blind, sorry, not as long as you do damage, because you can actually, it's like using an ability. This is in your traits, you know, this is something used as an attack, so you'll remove that blind just by dodging, so that's pretty good. So there's some nice, so your mobility in this build really helps you to take away those conditions. Again, you've got the emob that you can take away from 2 skills on the Greatsword. So not only is a Greatsword a good offensive and mobile weapon, but it's also good to get rid of that condition. So really good thing to note there. Physical skills deal more damage based on how much adrenaline you have. So if you have a ton of damage, if you have a ton of adrenaline and you want to pull off some really extra nice damage, you know, bring out the Greatsword, I guess, and jump into that. And that really synergizes well with that quickness later on. Burst skills restore endurance on hit. Don't really need to explain that more. Gain might on a critical hit with a Greatsword or Spear. Greatsword and Spear skills deal more damage and recharge faster. So we can just go up to something and just hit it actually. And you can see how much might comes out from that, and we can keep going. So get damage bonus when endurance is not full. So when you've dodged, you know, you can get some extra damage. Let's just see how much might we get just from hitting with the first ability with this build. There we go, up to 4 stacks now. It's probably not going to go much past 4 or 5. There we go, we got up to quickness. So just by basic attacks, you can see we hit 5 stacks of might there, and we got some quickness as well. Comes out with tons of damage. Obviously, we've got crit, so you know you're doing a lot of damage in this build. Gain a damage boost when you use a burst skill. Boost power increases based on how much adrenaline you have built. So you can see stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, 20% extra damage. So that's really, really nice in this build. You know, it's focusing mainly on the adrenaline part, and yeah, extra damage, showing how beneficial it is to not always spend your adrenaline as well. In Greatsword, you know, I don't really use that attack as much. I mean, we still get that fury and whatnot, but still, you can see how much is buffed through the traits. It actually shows you there. So, you know, the tooltips really, really have been updated. That's great to see as well. Defense. Let's go into defense. Fixed skin. So gain toughness while your health is above the threshold. So 90% your toughness is quite good for engagements, especially because you're, you know, if you jump into a team fight, extra toughness is always good, of course. Let's go over to the next one. Dogged March. Incoming movement impeding conditions have their durations reduced. Gain regeneration when you are affected by one of these conditions. So you get the immobilize on you, so you're going to get regeneration. You can break it with one of those Greatsword abilities, of course. Pardon me. Cripple and shield as well. So duration decreased by 33%. Things like panic strike as well from immobilize. If you've not got any emobes, you know that's quite important as well. And also the chilled, you know, your cooldowns and whatnot. You want those back up, and the cripple as well. These are all very, very important. Really, really useful. Really good. So, even just for that first line trait, you know. Adrenal health, so regenerate health based on adrenaline level. So if you've got a high amount of adrenaline, again, you know, you're going to be regenerating that health, and it encourages you to keep that level up quite high and not use it so much unless you really need to. Obviously, you know, the Earthshaker is so good at the AoE stun that you'll probably be using that most of the time it's up. Endure pain, so sorry, defy pain, so activate endure pain when you are struck while below the health threshold, which we already have is down here as well. So you can see you don't take any damage from attacks. You are still susceptible to conditions, but in this meta at the moment there's so much direct damage coming out that the conditions, well, other than Ellie is a problem for Warrior in my opinion. It's quite difficult unless you can pull out Rampage or get that damage off quite quickly. Still, you can 1v1 it, it just depends. It's very, very tough though. Spiked armor, so gain retaliation when you block or are struck by a critical hit. Retaliation gives you bonus toughness, which is pretty good again, you know, so if you can get that retaliation, you get that extra toughness and whatnot, and survivability, and extra damage coming out onto your opponent. Cleansing ire, gain adrenaline when hit. Remove a condition for every bar of adrenaline spent when you hit a burst skill. So obviously hammer is going to be probably your main one in a team fight to remove your conditions. You know, Earthshaker is going to hit quite a few targets. Obviously, you know, you do hit a lot of targets with arcing slice as well, so very useful to use that. Just depends what you want to use in that situation, where you've got available, of course. The other skills you can go for here, really feel like this is going to be probably the best one to remove conditions, because you haven't got a ton of condition removal. Okay, let's go down to discipline. So versatile rage, gain adrenaline on weapon swap. Nice. Warrior sprint, run faster while wielding melee weapons. Movement skills break immobilization when used. So this is why we have the immobilize coming out, of course. That was, probably didn't make that clear in the beginning, but you could see it was blue, so that, you know, that must, well, I guess maybe not everyone does know that. So that's obviously the addition through your traits. This is where the immobilize coming out. I should have explained the traits first, but that's exactly where that's coming from. Which is awesome, you know. Good stuff, good stuff. Let's move over to, again, with the Earthshaker, because it's a movement skill, you are removing that immobilization. So that's, again, something quite good. So if you get immobed on the spot and you've got like a thief on you or something, you can pull out that Earthshaker. You can not only stun him, but you can really, really do some nice damage as well when you come out of this, get rid of that immob as well. Weapon swaps, recharge faster, we've already done that. Remove conditions when you swap weapons. Yes, so good, so good. Another condition removal trait which is kind of needed. Gain might on weapon swap, just in the depths there. Burst skills recharge 15% faster. Excellent stuff. And then heightened focus. Now there's some people using Merciless Hammer still. At this moment in time, Lipion from TCG still uses this, but the quickness is very awesome. So you gain quickness when you strike a foe that is below the health threshold. So let's have a look over here. Which is 50%. So, say for example, you know, you're in your hammer, you've used your Earthshaker, you've brought on a ton of damage, and you know, you've got your quickness which comes up, and you've got it in the team fight, for example, so you can pull out Rampage, you've still got that quickness. Oh my god, you're bringing the pain right there. Next target is over there apparently. But you know, you've still got that quickness while you're in this rampage. Now, one thing I read on Metabell, which I didn't think about actually, because, you know, I probably would have thought about this a bit more if I was a warrior player playing this constantly, is the fact that you can use healing signet now with that resistance. So conditions currently on you are ineffective because you've not really got any condition removal while you're in the rampage. You can indeed pop that up before you go into rampage. Now we'll see in a minute when rampage comes back how long that lasts for. Rampage is like 20 seconds and the cooldown for the healing signet is 20 seconds. So to get the most out of rampage, you could use your healing signet, then use rampage, and you will have your healing signet off cooldown when you come out of it, because you are in a lot of crap when you jump into rampage. Sometimes, you know, people will start focusing you, you'll get your stability ripped off you, you'll get conditions applied to you, loads of stuff. So if you've got the healing signet, you pop it and you get that resistance, you know, it's only going to empower that even more, which means you can be even more offensive. I'm not saying you're not going to be offensive in the rampage anyway, because that would be ridiculous if you weren't, but you know, it really empowers it. It's a really, really good ability to have. So we're just going to wait 30 seconds until that happens. I'm going to have a look at some other abilities here as well. Things like, you know, one of your biggest sources of damage, of course, is 100 blades, and it's just beastly. So you can set that up quite well with things like, you know, some hammer skills which lock down your opponents, things like backbreaker because you can knock down your foe, obviously earthshaker, which is a given, or even your staggering blow as well, so you can just knock them back and then hit them with that 100 blades. Probably better with the earthshaker or the 5th skill, to be honest, but you know, still something else to give you an option there. So we are going to have rampage back up now, so wait for that golem to come up and I can show you. But yeah, so some great attacks here, some great mobility, some great defense, some great stunning potential and setups for you these abilities. There's a lot of synergy, and hopefully I get to show you exactly that in a gameplay video. So let's pop signet now and pop rampage. As you can see, we've still got the resistance there. We've got the stability obviously coming out from the build as well. Throw my rock. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not really doing the best rotation of this, to be honest, but you know, even if you're hitting, and this cleaves this first ability as well. So we'll wait until it comes out. Just doing whatever really. You can see the damage, and you can see the healing signet is back off cooldown. There you go. So you are even more empowered. So make sure, I mean, I try to do this every time I go into rampage, to be honest. I use my healing signet and I go into rampage, because if I use my, always going to use rampage for the full time anyway, unless I need to get some kind of condition removal by weapon swapping or whatever, you know. But for at least 6 seconds, I'm gonna have that resistance. So very, very useful indeed. Not much else to really talk about. I can show you maybe some hopefully some rotations when I actually play. But things like, you know, stomping, you do have, of course, balanced stance. You have your rampage as well. You have so much potential in this build to, you know, cleave as well, because you've got 100 blades. That's like such a good cleave ability on corpses and anyone going for a res, especially if they're below 50% HP. I mean, let's see if it just procs just by me doing this. There you go, it does. See? Just even under 50%, there's such a high chance for that quickness to come up. It pretty much doesn't ever not happen. Sometimes on the occasion it might do. But yeah, there you go. I mean, you can use that stability for resing. You can even go for rampage reses. So if you're really desperate, you know, come in with a massive knockdown from the 5th skill, res your ally, and you're back up and in the game, and you're still in that rampage. And you can, you know, back that up with the resistance. I mean, that's a really strong res. I mean, you can see how much HP we've got. At the moment, 24k HP. So if we pop, because we've got 3 seconds left, I'll just show you again. You know, we've got healing signet, and we got rampage. That's 20k extra HP, and we can use that to go for the res, especially with that resistance on as well. It's really, really powerful. Rampage is great. I don't want it to be nerfed, so I hope if anyone from Arena ever watches this, please don't nerf it, because it's such a fun ability for Warrior. It's really, really great. I felt sad for a while that, you know, Warrior was kind of a shout bow. It was playing shout bow Warrior in the old meta, and now it's really true to what I think a warrior should be. You know, very destructive, very powerful, very strong, but still you can take it down. It can be taken out, but it's mobile as well. You know, a warrior should be. And this is what I like about this build. Like, it feels like it should be in the game as a good PvP build. It should be strong, you know. And there are builds a lot like this for the other classes. I don't think it's overpowered. You can deal with Rampage. If you're against an engineer, you know, they can mower you. If you're against a Mesmer, they can mower you. Staff Ellies are a bit horrible to go up against as well, but you know, it can be dealt with. Thieves can really take it out quite well if they catch them when they're out of Rampage as well. So there's different ways they can be countered. They just need to be learnt how to be dealt with. You know, high tier players can counter these guys, so you know, everyone just needs to learn to as well. But otherwise, that is the Greatsword Hammer Warrior build that has been playing PvP at the moment. Obviously things could change, trait changes could come into effect, and there could be some different traits in here that you could use in sigils. But otherwise, I've been Jebro, and thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you very soon. Ta.